Hey everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations. You're with Simon today, and in today's video we're going to be looking at a chart of the day. This is for the 8th of January 2019, and as you know, always I look at a picture, I kind of get the essence of the picture, and then from there I kind of relate that to the astrology chart. And to me, this is what it's about. It's, in fact, you know, as I'm recording this right now and I'm talking to you through this chart right now, I'm bringing some of my own personal kind of like emotional relationship to it. You know, my own personal sense of self to this. So on some level, it's not really as objective as what a normal kind of chart analysis can be. But in some sense, I'm not really sort of looking for that, to be honest. I'm looking to kind of really use astrology as a way to awaken us, right? And so that's why this picture is on the front and why you're staring at it at the moment. I think, firstly, just put kind of a disclaimer out there that this is a conversation that I feel is going to be slightly triggering. And if you are triggered by it, you know, it's a good opportunity to potentially look at the emotion behind why that's there to begin with. It's a very Sun in Capricorn, Sun approaching Pluto kind of conversation today, so it's very real, it's very sobering, and it's, you know, there's no like softness about today's conversation, although I'm going to try to kind of put a little bit of soft edges around some things. But I think overall it's a very sobering conversation, you know. So if you feel that this is the time that you can digest this, fantastic. If not, I don't recommend watching the video just randomly. I think get yourself a space where you feel that you can digest, because it's going to bring up some stuff, I think, you know, or not. So, you know, I've left this picture on the screen for a reason, to kind of digest, and I want to try and exercise with everybody that if you're watching this video, to really feel the essence of what you actually sense is going on there. You know, what do you see? What do you feel? What comes up? What anger comes up? What sense of this is okay comes up, you know. Look at the picture very carefully and look at the subtlety of, you know, what is approaching the forest, the trees, how it's being approached, what's the color differentiation between two of the two sides. Notice that there's an actual boundary in which two areas are meeting each other. Which area would you prefer to live on? Not looking at the impending energy that is meeting each other, but which side would you prefer to live on, and why? And ask yourself the question in your response: why is it that you actually chose that side? I think for most of us, we're going to choose the one where nature is still in its form, you know. And the reason why we do that is because this is natural. It's natural for a reason, you know. Something to really contemplate, and I encourage every single one of you that, you know, gets the essence of listening to this channel and the work of Raising Vibrations, is that, you know, we like to look at astrology not from a let's just amplify the generic words that have been written in you know, just what's existing on the internet, but to really contemplate the nature of what these symbols mean, so we could potentially bring out a deeper essence every time. So with Jupiter being in Sagittarius, this is a very strong correlation towards nature and natural law. You know, it's natural for us to feel that the place that we want to live on in this picture over here is not the one where there is an absence of water. There is a a need to conquer, there's a need for domination, there's a need for looking forward and progressively destroying. That's not where we want to stay. And yet, paradoxically, the very reason as to why we developed those things to begin with was because of our own fear, at a collective level. For most of you that follow my work, you know that I talk about the planetary nodes, which are these reference points that, if you understand the nodes of the moon, you'll understand that each planet has its nodal axis as well. In other words, its south and north node. And with the sun and Pluto and Saturn and the actual south node of the moon all in Capricorn at the moment, there is a huge piece of attention that's being focused on the planetary nodes of Saturn and the planetary nodes of Pluto and the planetary nodes of Jupiter. And somewhere within our collective memory, we are very sensitive and aware of this interplay between the destruction and need for moving forward in a domination, cultural, aggressive way towards something that's inherently receptive. I mean, if you observe the nature itself, there isn't anything in there that has an aggressive stance to it. It's deeply receptive. It's the feminine. And I think that a big part of this conversation today that I also want to bring across that I think is healthy is processing through a lot of disbelief, lie, illusion that exists in the new paradigm of thinking that we're currently kind of evolving into, where there's an underlying subtle guilt that gets placed onto us subtly around how bad we are as a human race for quote-unquote messing up the planet. And that doesn't do anything either. It's just as destructive as ignoring the actions of our choices that leads to consistently a separation from nature, from natural law, and what is inherently supporting us at a resource-orientated level, And that is really, to really capture the essence of what I'm trying to talk about today at a very serious level, is that if we had to truly objectify the way and the inheritance of these choices and actions that all of us inside of ourselves and then as a collective have embodied, it is exactly that. It's an inherited experience. And this inheritance has got a trajectory that is just moving. And for us to stand in its way into a certain degree, or not to a certain degree, actually it is completely impossible to stop. It just has too much energetic momentum, which is why I'm segueing back into the statement I made about the lies and potential, illusion that gets created around trying to save the world, and saving the world through acknowledging climate change in this way, or acknowledging that it's destructive forces and the earth's going to run out of water and all of that type of stuff. It's healthy to acknowledge that, but what it's not healthy to do is for you as a single person to think that you can save the world. The paradox here is that you can, but you don't do it from the outside, you do it from the inside, and so it becomes a subtle revolution. And the revolution is that you've got to recognize, and this is what this kind of conversation is leading to, is that the separation that exists, this emerging, these two energy rifts that exist between what is natural for us and what is essentially conquering and dominating and destructive and resource orientating and consuming based, exists within us. And that when we begin to work inwardly in healing that separation, what arises out of that separation, what arises out of that, or that healing process, is a natural way of being that doesn't need to essentially fight back in an aggressive, displaced emotion, I'm angry at my father, mother kind of complex. And that gives more reason for authorities to create even more oppression, because of the fact that it just reveals the reason as to why the laws and the things are in place. And it's because it's to keep everything safe. So if you start acting out of the norm, even if to you it's justified and you're trying to go like, hey, this world needs saving, it's like that, you're just reinforcing the very reason as to why those rules are in place, because you're essentially, from their perspective, perceived as the reason, to put them in place. So really, the silent revolution, and this is the one where you subtly just recognize that in this rift that exists within us, that when you merge, when you realize that this separation exists, you make new choices in your own personal life. And those choices then lead to seeds that get planted within your life that then eventually start to bloom and grow. And then they become the fabric of your existence through new choices. And that subtly then creates a vibration into the collective that permeates. And so when you have 100 people that do that, you have a greater effect. But it's not seen or done in a way that attracts any attention, because it's not for the need to tear down the system because it's not working. It's an actual complete revolution into a new direction that just goes, okay, I'm just not going to do that. And you kind of just move into a new direction. And the natural energy that follows people in those choices just sets up a new paradigm, while the old one collapses because its cycle of evolution is taking place. We don't need to fight it. You don't need to fight it. You just need to heal yourself inwardly. And what are we healing? We're healing that picture. We're healing this many inherited collective karmic storyline. And here's the chart for everybody to look at. Let me just get it over here. All right, there's the chart. And what are we healing? We're healing Pluto conjunct the Sun. We're healing Saturn conjunct Mercury. We're healing the South Node sitting in Capricorn as well. We're healing what? This collective trauma in which the pre-existing structures were built around a reality in which at the time that it was being constructed was to us essential. We needed that. We needed to somehow, resolve our anxiety around feeling like nature is dangerous, and that we need to conquer it as a way of survival. And you see that in the world today. You see it everywhere. That if they're out of 100, right? 15 people are going to turn around and go, yes, my relationship to my family was cool, right? The rest of them are going to say troubled relationship with the mother, troubled relationship with the dad, mom and dad couldn't have a good relationship, and so on and so forth. And when you really examine without judgment the context as to what those complexes are about, you'll actually see it's an undercurrent of the collective society that suggests and supports behaviors that if weren't, there would be no survival. Like, for instance, the sort of publication of, or the glorification of materialism as a sense of purpose and success, okay? Which then leads to parents choosing a career or a path that links their sense of destiny to higher wage incomes and longer working hours, and then having a child, and then putting the child in daycare, and not having that strong bonding connection, and then getting confused at the Saturn opposition, where the child goes through the Saturn opposition, is trying to initiate their own sense of authority, and the parent hasn't got a good bond. So when the most crucial time between a parent and a child needs to come into play at the Saturn opposition for the teenager, there's no patience. There's no like, okay, I recognize that you're going through this experience right now, and I can open up my boundaries a little bit more and give you a little bit more freedom to explore yourself, while at the same time still remaining safe enough and showing you it's okay to get angry with each other, because part of that process is allowing feelings to come up. So there's an absence. This is just one thread, right? We can explore multiple threads, like how when babies come onto the planet, and this is my biggest gripe, to be honest. This is where I said the personal stuff comes in, and it's like the biggest issue amongst men today is their inability to feel that empowerment is actually rooted in them being sensitive. And so because of that inability to actually feel okay and be brave enough to feel emotion, because it's not rooted in shame, or that you are defined as a sissy, or to not feel emotion and to be a macho in that way, that complex without that sensitivity leads to an inability for the feminine to be safe, because they're going like, why would I want to be open where aggression and displaced anger and emotion regarding the relationship between the child and the mother wasn't taking place? So, which then originates from early life conditioning around the mom not being able to fully parent the kid because of certain societal structures that are in place that ultimately push a division, not on purpose. This is the thing here. This is what I think is really healthy about this conversation today. It's not done on purpose. There's no like, I think with Saturn transiting Capricorn at the moment, all of us need to wake up to the fact that on some level, when we blame society or the government or all these types of people that are in authoritative figures for the things that we feel helpless within ourselves, we're essentially reinforcing the very feedback of that disempowerment in a way that we're not conscious of, and so therefore going, oh, we don't have a choice. Whereas in actual fact, it is the very nature of moving in a different direction and slowly and progressively bringing sovereignty into your life that helps heal the shadow aspect of Saturn. So a lot of the culture feeds into this, let's blame society, or let's blame the governments, or let's shadow, or whatever the sort, and we never actually feel and recognize that within inside of ourselves, it's our own authority complexes and dynamics that need to be resolved. The rift is in us because we are part of a whole, and each individual holds an aspect of that whole. These are natural laws. It's not something that's just, and that's a lot. That's a lot to take in. That's a lot to observe. That's a lot to take responsibility for. And there are many complexes that arise from doing that. So it's not like, oh, okay, fine, Simon says this, I've got to do that, But it is a start in being able to progressively recognize that each disempowered situation can lead to a new choice that will, over time, allow for a new regrowth process to work. And I think that with Saturn conjunct Mercury here, the Sun conjuncting Pluto, the Sun is approaching the south node of Capricorn, or Pluto in Capricorn, we're experiencing the collective nonsense that's right in front of us. It's right in front of us, intense. It reveals to us the separation from the child and the mother at birth. It reveals to us how distorted our society is, that what happens is when the mother wants to breastfeed the child, that there is almost like a sense of perversion that exists with it. And yet in our magazines, in order to sell magazines, we kind of like popularize sex as a tool to attract attention, because it essentially, magnetizes the root chakra, right? And in that process, we're still sort of being deeply conditioned by this immediate satisfactory behavior And this is a lot of stuff to process. This is a lot of stuff to recognize. And we're moving through this stuff right now. And the difference between sort of like 3 years ago and 5 years ago, when we were going like, yeah, this is all true, da da da, is that Pluto and Capricorn and all these symbols in Capricorn are going, dude, this is not something that we just get to go, okay, yeah, it's happening. There actually there is a convergence point. There is an actual point in which one or the other is going to take place. Which side do you choose? And the irony of the situation is that the duality in this statement of which side do you choose leads to seeing the other side as evil. And that's the thing that I want to kind of highlight with Neptune in Pisces, Chiron in Pisces here, and with the North Node in Cancer. It's that it's not about looking at society and going, oh my God, you know, like, you're broken, and I've displaced anger because of that. Or, you know, religions in place that screwed a lot of people up, and now all of a sudden I'm, you know, messed up because of that. It's like, when we consistently keep placing that blame there, we don't see the experience as holistic. And so the message with the Pisces stuff, as it connects with the Saturn stuff here, is that what is approaching the forest is this aggressive, dominated, movement-oriented behavior that is coming from a place of deep anxiety, of deep fear, of deep distortion. And that when we embrace that experience as the past that has got us to this point, we can see that it no longer serves us anymore, because we have grown into an area of existence in which we don't need to feel that. We don't need that anymore as a driving evolutionary impulse. So it served its purpose, right? It served its purpose. So the way that we essentially embrace it into our lives is to accept that healing rift as the journey, and that we're consistently bringing back our bodies into the physical form subtly. You know, some of us can do it faster than others, and that's not a race. It's not a race. It's about the level of trauma or acceptance or sensitivity that you can hold in your body. And it doesn't have to be anything huge. It can be just simply just saying, you know what, today I'm going to make a choice that is not about consuming something, but about it's about contemplating the depth of my own inner rift and what I can do to change that, you know, and how can I just give attention to that little piece, just a subtle thing that correlates to this silent revolution inwardly. You know, you see it somewhere, you call it out, you acknowledge it for what it is, and then you allow your life to move forward progressively. And when this takes a whole, like, when the movement inwardly begins to shape itself this way, what we are searching for at a deep level of healing this patriarchal conditioning structure that was serving a purpose at the time, that now longer that doesn't need it anymore, it becomes an embracing experience. It becomes a learning of the past as a tool to teach us about how we can move in different directions, you know, and deepening our connection to what it means to be human. Again, this is the other thing here. It's so easy for us to see that picture and for us to reject it as bad. And, oh, I'm angry with it, even though I said, how does that make you feel? And that's the good thing. I want that anger to come up because I want you to feel when your boundaries have been crossed. I want you to feel when you felt like you've been pushed over. I want you to feel when that's there and not blame, but just recognize inside of yourself that that has happened, and that you can learn to give yourself the space for it to not happen again, as a way of using that energy to then become back out. So it's almost like using energy in a kind of Chinese martial arts type of way, of what is existing inside of you gets turned as a natural force back out to propel your choices going forward. So you don't consume yourself, getting lost in the need for fighting. Mars in Aries at 4 degrees, you know, it's actually pretty insane how when you look at most revolutionary chaos, war, Occupy Wall Street, Arab Springs, Paris of 60 something, you know, where there was just riots, it's sitting at between 0 and 4 degrees Aries, you know. And so it's natural for us with that Mars at the moment squaring Mercury to get so up in arms about everything, instead of using that energy as a way to infuse and enforce your own lives, like empowerment. So taking that energy and placing it into something where it's for something that you know is about the greenness in you, and subtly pushing back that way, so that this conflict that exists between an energy that is trying to take over is being enveloped by something that is essentially nurturing and regenerative. Okay. All right, so everybody, thanks very much for letting me, babble to you for whatever time that I have. Thanks very much for your attention. I appreciate it. If you like this video, you can always let Google know that you liked it, so that it kind of spreads out to more people, and share it with people that you know if you felt like there was something valuable in it. Write your comments down. What do you think in that sense? What did you see in the picture? How do you feel? That's always appreciative. Okay? All right, peeps. Have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.